And hello everyone. So this is the second series of my Minolta camera review. This one is the Minolta X570. So in the previous video, I've reviewed the XD5, which is an excellent camera, and I also have a comparison video between those two cameras. But this one, we're gonna focus on the X570 and give you guys a overall review of the features of the X570. Okay, so this camera came out in 1983. This is actually the little brother of the Minolta X700, which is supposedly the top of the line of the X series. But I highly go against you guys getting the X700 nowadays because the X700 is kind of not reliable. It uses two capacitors that are very prone to failure, and it's very hard to repair. Okay, so definitely if you are thinking about the X series, give X570 a serious consideration, because the X570 not only features only one capacitor that's easy to replace at the bottom, but it features a full aperture readout, a full shutter speed readout with current shutter speed indication, which is very important for a lot of professional photographers, or if you're just trying to learn film photography to start with. That means you just have to look in your viewfinder. You don't have to take your eyes off the viewfinder to adjust all the necessary settings and have a necessary information all in the viewfinder through that LED readout. The viewfinder also gives you the aperture info through this little window over here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little window there that displays what your current aperture setting is, which is, again, very helpful. The X700 fully plastic construction. It kind of sucks where in the 80s where plastic starts to become mainstream compared to more durable metal constructions. So this one is actually fully plastic exterior. Even I would say the only thing that's not plastic, you know what? I think this is also plastic. Yeah, fully plastic construction, which again really goes against the build quality of the older XD series cameras. Even though the XD5 have half plastic top and a full metal bottom, it feels much better constructed compared to the X570. Okay, but X570 does have all those advantages compared to the XD5 that you cannot find in the XD5 series because they came out earlier. Now the biggest thing is a on-off switch. With the old XD, you cannot switch the camera off, so prone to a lot of accidental exposures if you just accidentally press the shutter, which is very easy to accidentally press. Okay, so this on-off switch is definitely a nice plus. A very useful feature is a auto exposure lock. The auto exposure lock ensures that you can expose for the subject and then compose your shot, which makes taking pictures much quicker if you're composing a model shot with the model kind of off to the center. Okay, with the other cameras that don't have a auto exposure lock, you'll have to do a manual exposure by setting the shutter to manual mode, meter for your subject, and then move your shots away from your subject to the center for that exposure, which is gonna make your composition time much longer. So this is definitely a much quicker camera to use, a more modern way of composing your shots with a auto exposure lock. Self-timer mode, digital self-timer for 12 seconds exposure. If you have the self-timer on and you press, the light is gonna light up, and if you have it in the beeping mode, it's gonna beep as well to indicate, and then it's gonna expose and make a shot. Very nice features to have. Again, all those makes your film photography much easier, much more joyful to use. This one don't have an exposure compensation dial. However, it's really easily offset by just using your ISO film speed set. Okay, so all you have to do, just turn your ISO dial. If your film is 400, you want to push it, go for 800. And if you want to, or like even 3200 if you want, and if you want to pull, make a longer shutter exposure, or make a longer exposure, you just set your ISO to a slower speed. That way it increases the exposure time. Okay, so very easy to offset the disadvantage of not having a exposure compensation, which to me I don't think is necessary, and it's quickly offset. So this camera is almost perfect in every way to make your shooting experience as enjoyable as possible, And again, it's compatible with all the Minolta XD lenses and the MD lenses and the MC mount lenses. So everything is compatible with this camera. It's fully electronic, so make sure if you're out on a shoot, bring your batteries. Bring extra batteries. It uses standard LR44 1.5 volt battery, so very easy to find, and those batteries actually last forever. Okay, so metering uses the most most advanced for those kind of cameras, silicone blue cell light meter, which responds very sensitively to lights and makes very accurate central weighted exposures. Okay, so your shots is all gonna come out perfectly if you know what you're doing. Even if you don't know, 90 to 95% of the shot is gonna come out perfectly fine. So all in all, this is probably the best camera you can get from Minolta, and the latest you can get that features all of most of the professional advantages from the modern day electronic cameras. For example, the auto exposure lock and the aperture priority mode, definitely nice to have. A on-off switch, believe it or not, is actually quite useful. And full aperture and shutter speed readout from your viewfinder, which is definitely going to be handy when you're composing the shots without having to look away from your viewfinder. If you know what you're doing, this camera is going to give you very, very nice results paired with very capable Minolta MD or MC lenses, and the silicone blue cell light meter in the camera always gives very accurate, very fast response results or meter readout for your composition. And I would say 90 to 95% of the shots is going to come out perfectly fine if you don't even know what you're doing. You just point it to your subject and it's going to make a perfect exposure. If you are starting out in photography, you don't know how to set up the exposure compensation, for example, for a black cat, just learn exposure compensation to over and underexpose those shots to compensate for those situations, and you will make sure 100% of your shots is going to come out nicely exposed. This camera is definitely a nice tool for you to enjoy your film photography. Okay, if you guys have any questions about this camera in particular, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. And again, check out my other videos for the comparison of the X570 to the XD5 and even to the X700, as well as some other offerings from Olympus. You definitely have a lot of choices in terms of 35mm film photography nowadays. Thanks again for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.